The story of Scrimmage follows Killian McMurphy, a second-generation Irish immigrant in the United States of America in the year 1890. In his search for the identity of his mother, who he never got to know, he travels to the town of New Dunfield, where his last remaining relative, his widow Aunt Neath, lives. Not one to give away things for free, his aunt has asked of him to bring her a very particular cat in exchange for the information he seeks. Just as his question is about to be answered, however, the cat escapes, and thus begins a lengthy chase, marred with challenges and riddles that end in the death of said cat. Desperate and unsure on what to do, Killian turns to the only logical remedy for his problem: necromancy. The story itself is set in the early 1890s in the American state of Massachusetts, a choice which was made for multiple reasons, but mostly due to the connection the state and the time period have with events such as the Salem witch trials, as well as the area of New England being home to genre-defining writers such as Edgar Allan Poe, but most importantly H.P. Lovecraft, whose work and genre of cosmic horror are not only set in the area of New England, but are also a great inspiration for this project. As the story lead for the game, my main focus was creating and filling the world in which the game takes place with characters, curiosities, and lore. The story itself is centered, as mentioned before, around the main character's search for the identity of his mother. Quickly, however, this search, which also doubles as a search for meaning and his own place in life, becomes more and more bizarre as the player explores New Dunfield. The riddles present in the game were made and designed by myself with the help of our team's art lead Philip. Furthermore, these riddles were subject to testing and change based on the research conducted with them for Philip's master thesis, which enabled us to craft a more concise and clearer experience for the player. As mentioned before, our creative direction and just about all the artwork making up Scrimmage were made by Philip. This includes but is not limited to the UI, item icons, backgrounds, characters, character portraits, and any and all miscellaneous art pieces. Pertaining to style choices for the aforementioned categories, there are a few things that have to be touched on. Firstly, the UI design is focused around two main points. One was to really hammer home the era the game is set in, through the use of brass and gold ornaments, industrial style decorations, and lots of cogs. The latter doubling as the second point, as the cogs etc. are used mainly in the inventory portion of the game, implying the possibility and necessity of combining items inside the inventory, which is an integral part of the game's riddles. The backgrounds, which were initially not part of Philip's tasks, were made in cooperation with Sabrina. Sabrina was responsible for the rough outline and structure of the backgrounds, while Philip was the one responsible for the final product and the visual direction they took. As there are many options to interact and inspect different characters, objects, curiosities, and buildings, guiding the player through all of these options is an important part of the game design. This is mainly done through the use of light, contrast, as well as color. The character art is also split into two categories. On one hand, there are full body versions of each character which are used in the overworld of the game. On the other hand, each character has its own portrait, which is used in interactions with said character. The generally eerie atmosphere of the game is also reflected in the character designs, as each character has its own defining features which all play into said feeling. The technical side of things is handled by Sabrina, who also doubles as our dedicated sound designer and additionally works on backgrounds. In terms of technical work, the main part of it consisted of the implementation of backgrounds and what they entail. This includes, but is not limited to, the setting of hotspots, the implementation of the parallax effect, and the movement of hotspots, characters, interactables, etc. that happens through said effect, as well as scene transitions, the creation and adaptation of our render pipeline, as well as the post-processing effects applied to the game, which contribute greatly to the look and overall feel of the game. Additionally, dialogue and object interaction systems were added, as well as implementing the inventory and item logic necessary to play the game. Large parts of the things above were handled through the adventure creator, which provides a great framework for the kind of game we're looking to create. The best example for this is enabling an easy implementation of context-sensitive interactions, meaning when interacting with a hotspot that is a person, object, or building, the interaction is a different one depending on what the hotspot is, which also changes the icon displayed in the HUD. Last but not least, the soundscape is made from a combination of collected sounds, as well as two different self-made themes, which are made by Sabrina in GarageBand.